They say a family's greatest blessing is its faith. That the strongest fortress is built not of stone, but of shared belief, of whispered prayers in the dark. But what if that faith is the doorway? What if the blessing is not a shield, but an invitation? This is not a story about possession. This is a story about a covenant, made in ignorance, sealed in desperation. A story about a father who tried to save his daughter, and in doing so, offered her and all who came after to something that had been waiting in the soil for centuries. Family, gather close. This is the Dread Codex. And our tale begins, not with a scream, but with a gift, left at the foot of an ancient lightning-scarred oak. My name is Jonah Miller. I do not trust the quiet of rural America. I do not believe in folk remedies. This is why. In the late autumn of 1998, we lived in a farmhouse outside Ravenswood, West Virginia. A place of rolling skeletal hills and hollows that swallowed sound. My father, Elias, worked the dying coal seams until they bled him dry. My mother held our world together with hymns and hard work. And then there was Prue. Prudence. 16 years old. She had a laugh that could cut through mountain fog. Then the sickness came. It wasn't a fever. It was a dimming. A light going out behind her eyes. She'd sit for hours, staring at the corner of her room, where the damp wallpaper peeled away from the wall like dead skin. Charleston doctors mumbled about stress, adolescent psychosis, pills that made her a ghost of a ghost. So my mother turned from the pulpit to the parlor. She invited a woman from the next hollow, a seer, Sister Alara. She arrived smelling of wet earth and camphor, traced our doorframes with bony fingers, chanted words that were not from any Bible. And when it was done, she stood in our kitchen and said, "The shadow upon her is lifted. But my allies, the ones who help me see it clear, they'll stay a spell." To make sure the work holds, my father, hollow-eyed with hope, asked, "Allies?" "The faithful departed," she said. A smile that never touched her eyes. "Spirits of this land. They may show themselves. Their forms may be strange, but do not fear them. They are a blessing, a protection." We paid her in cash and canned goods, and for a month, Prue seemed better. Then one afternoon, I found her in the barn, milk pail spilled at her feet, staring into the dark of an empty stall. "Jonah," she whispered. "The tall man. He's green. His teeth, they're too long. And he's angry." We told ourselves it was the faithful departed, a strange form. A blessing. That was the first lie. The sickness returned, but it had changed. Now it was an invasion. Prue would be reading, then her back would arch like she'd been yanked by a wire. She'd claw at her throat, gasping that a woman in a sodden white dress was sitting on her chest. She said a black, formless shadow stood behind her, holding her skull in a vice grip, while something cold and needling stabbed at the soles of her feet. My father's faith curdled into desperation. We took her to revival tents. She vomited nails. We took her to root workers, pouches of bitter herbs around her neck. Each time, a few days of peace. Then screaming. Worse than before. Now, she spoke in a chorus of grating voices, pointing at empty corners, describing the congregation gathering there. The last straw was old Bessie, our milk cow. Prue looked her dead in the eye and said in a flat man's voice, "She'll be dead in 3 days. On the morning of the third day, Bessie was cold on the straw. No mark on her. We were drowning. It was Old Man Brewer who rasped, "You've tried every shoutin' preacher and hill witch. You ever try Reverend Asa Blackwood? Lives up in the high hollow. He don't cure hogs. He binds what shouldn't be. My father took Prue up the mud track to Blackwood's cabin. The Reverend was carved from hickory and sorrow. He looked at Prue, humming a dissonant tune, and said, 'You can leave her with me. It'll take a year. Maybe more. I can't leave my daughter,' my father pleaded. 'Then bring her every day. Rain, snow, hell, or high water. And know this, what's on her isn't one spirit. It's a colony. They'll get in your head, make you think this is useless. Your doubt is their doorway.' We agreed. For a month, my mother drove her up at dawn. And for a month, nothing changed. Only Prue's growing gleeful contempt. 'He's weak,' the voices sneered through her. 'His God can't hear him up here.' The doubt settled into our house like a toxic fog. We stopped going. The entities celebrated. They didn't just attack Prue now. They warped our home. Clocks ran backward. The scent of grave soil filled a room, then vanished. A third set of footsteps paced the stairs between me and my father. One night, the wallpaper in Prue's room peeled itself off in strips and laid itself out on the floor in the shape of a thorny cross. I finally broke. Cornered Prue on the porch roof. "Prue, goddammit, are you faking this? Is this for attention?" She turned. And for 1 second, it was just my sister. Her eyes brimming with a pain so deep it stole my breath. "You want to know, Jonah," she whispered. "The woman in white drowned in the quarry in 1921. She's so cold. The green man was hanged from the big oak for things he didn't do. His rage is older than this county. The black shadow, it's not a person. It's the hollow itself. The hunger of this place. They're not just on me. They're in the walls. In the well. In the coal dust Pa brings home on his boots." She took a shaking drag of her cigarette. "Sister Alara didn't summon them. She opened the door and let them know dinner was served. And Jonah, they're arguing over who gets to stay." That truth broke my father. He drove back to Blackwoods, Prue catatonic beside him, and fell to his knees on the porch. "I have no faith left," he sobbed. "Only fear." "Is that enough?" Blackwood helped him up. "Fear of the right thing," he said quietly, "is the beginning of wisdom. The real war began." Blackwood laid siege to our home. Salt. Spring water blessed by ministers dead 100 years. A Bible so worn its verses felt alive. He chanted, his voice a low thunder that made the very light grow still and heavy. Prue convulsed. The voices within her shrieked in languages that clawed at the ear. It was a war of attrition. A year and a half. Some days Prue was clearer. Others, a vortex of howling malice. Blackwood never wavered. "They're old," he'd grunt, "and stubborn, but selfish. They'll turn on each other before they give up a warm living house." He was right. We began to hear them arguing in the night. Snarling. Guttural. Fracturing. In the summer of 2002, Blackwood stood on our porch for the last time. Prue, 19, pale but present, stood beside him. "It's done," he said. "The bond is broken. The door is shut and salted. They'll whisper from the hollows, but they can't cross your threshold." We wept with a relief that felt like being born again. Prue moved to Richmond. Married. Had a daughter. We believed the horror was a closed book. A scar finally healed over. But some doors, once opened, leave a draft. Last month, my father died. In his sleep. We buried him in Ravenswood's red clay. At the wake, my mother pulled me aside. Her hands were ice. "Jonah," she whispered, "the Reverend came to me in a dream. He said he was sorry. Sorry for what, Ma?" He said, "I bound them to the land, to the bloodline of the one who invited them in. I didn't know the bond would hold past the grave. Your father's not at rest, son. He's garrison. They're pressing against him." And when his strength fades, I told her it was a dream. Grief talking. I poured her a drink. Changed the subject. Tonight, my wife is away. The house is silent. An hour ago, the power went out. Only in my house. A perfect, swallowing silence. And from the heating vent, a smell began to seep out. Not dust. Not mildew. Damp clay. Old coal. And beneath it, the coppery tang of a fresh-turned grave. The darkness in the corner of my bedroom, it's no longer just an absence of light. It's a presence. And it's thickening. I just heard it. A faint, wet, tearing sound. Like roots breaking through a coffin lid. Then a voice, woven from my father's weary sigh and my sister's forgotten childhood scream, whispered from that gathering dark, "The covenant stands, son. The land is hungry, and the congregation is waiting for its new shepherd." This is the story of the Miller family. It is not a possession story. It is an inheritance. The most profound terror is not a stranger in the dark. It is the legacy left to you by those who loved you most. A blessing that becomes a birthright of dread. A faith that becomes a chain, binding generations to a hunger older than memory. So listen closely, family. If you are ever offered a salvation that comes from the soil and not the soul, if your protection feels like a possession, if you feel the weight of your family's history not as roots, but as anchors pulling you down, question. Some homes are not built on land, but on an altar. And some family traditions are not stories we tell, but sentences we serve. If you have a story that haunts you, send it to contact.thedreadcodex@gmail.com. Your truth becomes our tale. Your likes and comments keep these stories alive. Until next time, may your path be lit. May your faith be your own. Good night.